Announcement.
Ready? Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's 5:31. Roll call, please.
Mayor Louis Trujillo,
Present.
Councilor David Romero, Councilor Barbara Casey,
Here.
Councilor Michael Montoya,
Present.
Councilor David Ulivari.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have a quorum.
Thank you.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to take a moment just to thank everybody for all the volunteers that work on our committees and all the volunteers that help with the shelter, the animal shelter, the United World College for lending so many hours of public service to our community, to all the people who sit on our boards and commissions, to people who volunteer their time in this community. I'd like to just take a moment just to recollect and a moment of thank you in this time. Thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the agenda as presented.
There's a motion by Ms. Casey. Second, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Montoya.
I would second that motion, but I would like to request that we remove the minutes of March the 8th, 2023, due to the reason that on business item number 1, on page 8, there was no second to that motion. There was discussion and there was a vote taken, but there wasn't a second. So therefore, we should follow Robert's Rule of Order and follow preliminary procedures.
What is your recommendation, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, I'm looking at the minutes right now. Let me take a look real quick, just to confirm that.
Mr. Mayor, the thing is, if we don't have a first and a second, the item dies for lack of a second. And we should have voted on it. So I'm going to recommend that the clerk bring it back at our next meeting, and so we can do it properly.
And those are the minutes for what date?
That was again on March the 8th, 2023.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, I will go ahead and look into that, and then we will bring it back.
Thank you. Next order of business, please.
I have a motion by Councilor Casey, a second by Councilor Montoya. Roll call. Councilor Romero,
Yes.
Councilor Ulivari,
Yes.
Councilor Montoya,
Yes.
Councilor Casey.
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Casey, a second by Councilor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving on to public input, we have no public input this evening. Therefore, we will move on to mayor's appointments, reports, recognitions, and proclamations. We have our first appointment of Oliver Lesbrance to the Lodgers Tax Board. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. I'll stand for a motion to approve Mr. Lesbrance to sit on the Lodgers Tax Board.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Romero.
I just want to make the motion, and I think that was a great pick, the Lodgers Tax Board. I make a motion for Mr. Oliver Lesbrance, Lodgers Tax Board.
I second.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero, second by Ms. Casey. Roll call, please.
Councilor Ulivari,
Yes.
Councilor Casey,
Yes.
Councilor Montoya,
Yes.
Councilor Romero. I have a motion by Councilor Romero, a second by Councilor Casey. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Our next appointment is appointment of Katrin Schultz-Barth, Kristen Sanders, and Antonio Jaramillo to the Tree Board.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve 3 individuals to the tree board.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero. Second, please.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero? Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari? I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Olivari. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
I think Dr. Spencer brought us a flag again, Tree City USA. So if you want to come up, Dr. Spencer, you're welcome to. And thank you for the tree board for all the work you do. We wouldn't be Tree City USA without you.
Well, we've had that honor for quite a long time. You've seen me here before carrying flags, and the Tree City USA designation is given by the National Arbor Day Foundation, and you have to qualify by 4 criteria, and we've done that for the last quarter century. And so I'm here tonight to present you with a flag which I hope might be capable of being hung in a park. And that's what we're doing with the trees.
Wow. Awesome.
Can show it. Well, it's too big to really do.
Beautiful.
There it is.
Right on.
And we hope that it will fly proudly for quite a long time.
Yes.
And if I have just a moment, I want to thank you folks for approving the new members on the tree board. We have a whole lot of things to be thankful for with respect to the council. First of all, you, for the first time in the history of the city, as far as I know, have put actual line item money in the budget for tree issues. And we obviously love that, and we think that we hope you'll keep us in mind, and we need lots more money for various things. We also want to make a special thanks to Councilor Montoya, who has come and participated in our meetings and given us valuable input and has helped our relationships with the city. And lastly, the three new people, Antonio Jaramillo from the Community First Bank. He's head of facilities and security and maintenance, and he wanted some of our advice. So we gave it to him, and he started coming to the meetings initially to inform us about the advice, but he stayed on, and now he's grabbed a pair of pruners and he and Tom Lamberth just did a block on Douglas, just pruned it. And so we're very pleased to have a member of the commercial community in town. Katrin and Kristen are sitting right there, and they are amazingly qualified people.
Wonderful.
And so anyway, we're very pleased that they've joined us, and we believe that the tree board is looking forward to a good year this year. And thank you guys for your part.
Thank you, Dr. Spencer. Thanks for all that your board does for our community. It's really great, and we'll get this flag up tomorrow. I'd like to see if we can fly it in the Plaza Park or one of the parks that has a flagpole. Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, do you have a report?
No, not at this meeting. I'll forego till next city council meeting.
Next item is councilors' reports.
Oh, me.
Go ahead,
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Casey.
I just have 2 short concerns. One is the animal shelter, dogs running at large. And my opinion is that we need more people working at the shelter. We need cameras. We need to know of any incidences that occur there so that we don't read them on Facebook. I think that anything that occurs there that is of concern to the city needs to be forwarded to the city council members so that we know exactly what's going on. I don't appreciate having to read about things happening on Facebook and then having to worry about those concerns and what is being done. Also, I did receive about 6 or 7 photos of sidewalks on 6th Street And I did send those to the city manager, the deputy city manager, and to the public works director. And there seems to be a lot of confusion as to whether or not sidewalks are taken care of by the city, if they're the responsibility of the city, or the responsibility of the property owner that has the sidewalk in front of their home. I would like to have some kind of clarification on that so that I can get back to the constituent who sent me the pictures. The sidewalks are practically non-existent and very dangerous. In the past, and I remember this very clearly, my first term as a city council person in 2016, the sidewalks on Railroad and Commerce were redone at the expense of the city. And so this person that sent me the photographs has already been told primarily that she, as a property owner, would have to be responsible to pay for the sidewalks. So I don't know what the difference is between 2016 and now. And so I would like some clarification on that because the sidewalk is in extremely bad shape. That's all, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Next order of business, please. Yes, Mr. Romero?
Okay, first off, Mr. Mayor, I just maybe want to apologize if I seem like I'm coming off harsh, but I have had some frustrations with the direction of the city and where we're at. And not only that, but also the questioning of us as city councilors and the micromanagement and things of that nature. I concur with Councilor Casey as far as the animal shelter. I think I was a proponent of, ensuring that we fund the shelter properly. So I too was surprised. I did inquire because I did hear about that break-in and I was told that it was nothing major, but then we saw on the newspaper and also on Facebook and also on the news. So that was surprising. So I think, as far as transparency, we need to be transparent with the counselors. And I don't know if all of you guys knew, but I sure didn't. And I know when I questioned it, I was made that it wasn't a big deal. Obviously, it was big enough for the news to come down. The other part, just comments about, specifically, and I'm going to say me, Councilor Romero with Crestone Park, and that I'm being a thorn because of the Crestone Park. I want to ensure that we as councilors have fiscal responsibility to ensure that funding is spent properly here at the City of Las Vegas. We had funding within Crestone Park that hasn't been spent. We're here in April 12th. I'm still concerned on that. I know that some stuff has gone up. I don't know if the proper paperwork and everything will be done in a timely manner. I'm also concerned as far as CES. Again, I was a proponent of CES, but I'm seeing some of the charges on CES. I think they're absurd. I didn't realize the cost of some of these CES services that were getting charged to the city. I understand CES, if it's an emergency, things get done right away, but some of these CES were procured back in, if I saw some of the stuff in November or August of last year. So at that point, I think there's enough time to, to request the quotes and that. One of the concerns that I had, and I don't know, I haven't had a chance to talk to city manager since he came back. The fencing, I did send an email to safety and also to yourself and to deputy. I did see that they took it off. I was concerned about the safety of a 4-foot fence, and I was just curious as to what specs did you spec that out that 4 foot was okay there?
So, Mayor and Council, there is no specs tied to what's allowable or not allowable for a city park
On a fault zone?
on a fall zone. There is none. I've consulted with our safety officer, Mr. Jaramillo, and he cannot find any other documentation online or elsewhere that says that it needs to be at a certain minimum.
So there was no concern, I guess if you could get that, if that's the case, if we can get that in a letter, I'd like to see that because I think if, being a coach, a ball goes over that fence, the first thing the child wants to do is jump over that fence. And on that south end side of the park, there's 1 foot and then they're over the edge. But if that's what the safety guy is, I just wanted to make sure that that's what it was. Then just concerned, okay. Then why was it removed then if it was okay?
Some of the concrete was, some of the poles that were installed were a little bit loose, so the contractor, the owner of the company, didn't like the way that some of his staff had installed them, so he instructed his workers to remove some of those so that they can put a larger base of concrete on those. Again, on the fall, there is no cliff right next to the edge of the poles of the fence. We're more than welcome to walk the project to make sure that it meets everybody's needs. I know that they flattened out a large area in comparison to what the project looked like before. It had an old chain link fence. The drop zone was in the same area. Right adjacent to that, we have a guardrail that goes down the hill, and that is in the same situation. That has actually cliff right next to the side of it versus where we're setting our new fence.
But the kid, and I don't mean to sound disrespectful, but the kids don't play on the street where it goes over the guardrail. And the chain link fence, if I recall, was 6 or 8 foot fence.
It was probably 5 foot that was there, but nevertheless, yes, we can look at it.
Okay. The other part, again, and I want to emphasize this, I don't know where the part is that there seems to seem some kind of concern that, things can get done without even notification of the council, and that's disturbing to me. I don't know about the rest of you, but it's disturbing to me. I did inquire about some pay raises that I heard about, despite, other personnel issues, and we could talk about that in a personnel report. But, I did receive a report, and in all transparency to everybody, I think that I would like a presentation done on how those raises are given out. In my 13 years of being an elected official, I have always been taught that you go by the budget. The budget, there's a line item for each position in there, and some of the raises go beyond that, behind that budgeted item. When that happens, then a bar is made, brought to council. That wasn't done, so that's concerning to me. And again, I sit on many state boards, and that's always happened where it comes before the board. I know, and I'm not just going to blame now, but I know it's happened in the past where just raises are given, and there has to be some form of transparency. I could probably, and I think we all could come up with individuals that probably deserve a $2 or $3 raise, and it seems like that doesn't happen. But I guess the transparency part is if there's a system in place that that you put in place, then I think it's fair that, everybody understands, so they work harder or whatever they have to do to meet those specs to get that $2 or $3 raise. And I'll leave that at that. I know that Councilor Montoya had requested a public review of the audit findings and what we're doing to address those audit findings, so I don't know when we could schedule that. Mr. Mayor?
Executive item. No one had questions that when the presenter came and the auditor came and presented before us, and no one had any questions. As a matter of fact, they were ready to answer any questions to any findings and how they worked with staff and so forth, and there was no questions asked. We moved on. I'm requesting that that's a personnel matter that needs to be discussed with mayor and council, with our city manager and executive.
And the other part is, I guess, so we could decide, if we could have on the agenda the city manager's evaluation, an actual item. And that'll do, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Matua?
Mr. Romero, I'm a little bit puzzled, but what do you mean by mayor and council micromanaging, or that we're going in the wrong direction? Like, for instance, is...
I'm not, what I'm saying is that word is that we are micromanaging, Mr. Councilman.
We are?
Yeah, that's the comment. So that's why I wanted to bring forward that we do have fiscal oversight. We do oversee the budget. So I don't know where these comments are coming from, but I think that I wanted to set that straight, that at the end of the day, we do have some responsibility here, and we also have to be made aware of things that are going on.
Councilor, I'd also like to know where those comments are coming from. I'd also like to know.
Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, we have our city manager's report. We have Mr. Maestas.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. like to first start off with my report with welcoming our new staff, Mr. Maximiliano and City Baca, and our KAB coordinator, or KAB temporary seasonal employee, Mr. Cape Chandler as maintenance worker 1, Conferina Halpern, youth programs coordinator, Ana Elena Herrera as a KEB temp, Ethan Herrera as also a KEB temp, John Herrera as a KEB temp, Austin Parales as a recreation aide, and Mr. Thomas Vigil as a custodian. We wish them luck as new employees of the City of Las Vegas. I'd also like to kind of discuss or elaborate a little bit on the auctions that that have taken place. There's currently 5 auctions that have taken place since November of 2020. You can see the numbers of what monies have come in on a lot of old equipment that's been sitting around on city properties, equating to just under $300,000 in the last 5 auctions. I'd also like to thank our finance department, and more specifically, Ms. Margaret V. Silva and Ms. Helen Vigil for all the work that they've put into these auctions. I'd move on to some of the project updates. Park improvements have continued at some of our parks that had been put on hold because of the concrete installation because of the cold weather. Affluent water is back on, so our parks will start greening up in the near future. There's been concerns about our park signs and as well as city building signs. Those have been procured and created, and now the park signs are getting installed, will begin to get installed. Pothole patching is in full swing. Also, there was some areas of the Riverwalk that were badly deteriorated on the north portion, so Public Works has gone in there and patched those areas of the Riverwalk. Great Blocks Project Phase 2, which is a block of road on Jackson, I believe. Lincoln, I'm sorry. It is completed. There's a few punch list items that the contractor has to address that have been identified with project management and Parks, Public Works Department. We have received a grant from Main Street to move forward with our Phase 3 of the project, which would be going north a block and south a block on Railroad, to complement the project that we've just completed. These are some problematic areas that we've had that we looked at with ARPA funds, and Mayor and Council identified some funds to put aside to these sewer and water line projects. One of them being Hot Springs Boulevard. It's completed with the sewer line. They have started the water line. Again, the sewer line was a project that was real deep in some areas that went from Bernalillo to San Miguel Street. Now we're looking at patching the asphalt. We're looking at options of not only patching the excavated areas, but possibly the whole lane. Not both lanes, but because budget doesn't allow us to, but we're looking to see if we can patch the northbound lane, I'm sorry. Moving on to other sewer line projects on Independence. As we all know, it's a project that's been going on for some time. There was some concrete under the surface that nobody anticipated, so that kind of put a damper in the project. Nevertheless, there's one more manhole that needs to be installed, and then that project will go ahead and get patched for the surface, for the traveling public to go through that area. Also, we have a water line on Baca Avenue that goes for 4 or 5 blocks. That one has been a problematic water line for the City of Las Vegas for some time. There's 2 fire hydrants that are installing, that need to be installed. One was being installed today. Also, we had some claims on Chem Drive for sewer backup, so we addressed that. There were some large elm trees that needed to be cut back. The sewer line was replaced, and now they're moving into reseeding the surface because it's in an alley of. Also, we have RFP that is going to be going out for Hot Springs Boulevard, going south from Mills Avenue. That was funding that was acquired through CDBG. We're going to push the funds as far as we can. We're thinking we're probably only going to get about 2 blocks. That's going to be addressing the roadway and ADA compliant ramps in that area. And lastly, our Legion project is on the on the agenda for tonight so that we can move forward with the construction project, construction portion of the Legion Drive project. And lastly, I just want to talk about our hiring event. We have 52 positions that are posted online, 25 of which the staff at the hiring event will be prepared to do on-site interviews. So we encourage anybody in the community or surrounding areas, anybody that's interested in coming out and working for the city of Las Vegas, we welcome you. I stand for any questions, Mayor and Council.
Mr. Maestas, on the Creston Park, will that project be completed and will those funds be expunged before, or spent, or before the time?
Before the end of June, yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Matar?
Mr. Maestas, so on that auction funding, it all goes to its department, and then they can utilize it there. And, you know, I just want to acknowledge the Public Works Department, because we had gone on a tour of the Riverwalk, and that was with the New Mexico DOT, and we were applied for that funding, and we're 100% sure we're going to get it. But at that time, we noticed a lot of spots that were, the asphalt was missing completely, and it's a liability more than anything else. But I want to thank Mr. Arnold and his staff up there for addressing that, and also for cleaning up the trees all around in the yard over here on the north end of the city hall, and all on the backside also. Now you can walk into the sign shop and you can pick a sign instead of going over all kinds of stuff, barrels and tires and, you know, the whole works. It's clean inside, it's all organized, it's like a sign shop should look like, you know. The other thing is, you know, I've seen the blade patching that has been, or the pothole patching that has been going on throughout the whole city, and again, I emphasize that some of those patches do have to be cut and replaced and not just patched on, especially where the water sits. But I did have a couple of concerns, Mr. Maestas, about the Rodriguez Park. And I went by there yesterday morning, day before, and I don't see it being ready for an opening. I think there's overgrown trees on the backstops, and I see some of those practice fields need to be bladed, and a whole cleanup needs to happen. I know we utilize a lot of volunteers, but we have a contractor working out there, and I tell you, they need to put up a fence in between the work that's being done and where kids are gonna be at, parents, cars, traffic, so forth. And also, there's no restrooms out there. At least there wasn't yesterday. There was one that the contractor has that the kids were using, and you know, we need to be better than this. We need to be more prepared. The watering of the grass it's not there. Apparently they're watering with a 300-gallon tank and so forth. And I know there's problems that happen with the system, but they need to be addressed and they need to be fixed ASAP. Whatever it is, if it's a line broken or a pump broken or cracked or whatever it is, if we're gonna have a season, we need to address those issues. And lastly, I think security should have been the number one in that project, and number two, it would be the drainage. That should have been addressed in that whole project. But there's a lot of issues, and as we saw in our councilman and manager's report, there's a lot of things that are going on, good things that are going on within the city. Sometimes when we sit up here, we complain about this and the other, because sometimes we expect miracles. Sometimes, you know, I think we move too slow sometimes. But you know what? This administration has done more, I feel, than the last administrations as far as road construction and park improvements and down the road. The money that we've obtained through the governor's office for the Rodriguez Park, the street lighting that's gonna be converted to LED, all the water lines, sewer lines that we've replaced, a lot of administrations never addressed those issues. And they fell in our laps, and we're taking care of them. Our police force, the same thing, and, it's 52 openings. What can I say? People don't want to work. Yeah, salary might be an issue. We're working on salaries. We worked with the fire department, now we're working with the police department, and then we still have ASME to work with. So, we're trying to do what we can to accommodate, but I'll stop at that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, I had a question on the report. Mr. Maestas, the budget for the fiestas, I'm hearing concern that there's no budget for fiestas. Where are we with that?
So we do have budget for fiestas. We were identifying how much revenue came in from all the vendors last year, but it's already in the budget for this year. The fiestas budget is sort of a unique thing because the budget is set and a lot of those services are done in the next fiscal year. So we collect a fee from the vendors prior to that event, which is in this year, and then the actual event takes place in next year. So, but there is funding in there for the fireworks, which we're having a difficult time trying to hire. A lot of vendors are not available the way they used to be for fireworks, but the budget is there. It's the same budget we've always had.
Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, we have approval of minutes for March 6th, March 15th, and March 28th, 2023.
Mr. Mayor,
March 8th are out. March 8th are out,
Right, I did not mention March 8th.
not on the agenda.
Ms. Casey?
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move approval of the minutes for March 6th, 15th, and 28th.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Casey, second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Olivari. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Next order of business, presentations not to exceed 10 to 15 minutes. We have one presentation by Richard Linderborg, President of the Arts Council, giving an overview of activities in the city-owned building at 140 Bridge Street and description of their twice-monthly community calendar.
Thank you, Richard. You're welcome. Come on up.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, thank you very much for having me today.
Welcome, Richard.
Mr. City Manager, thank you for setting this up. I was introduced as by name and by position. For those of you who don't know me, my brother and I came here with my family in 1949. All three of us, children in that family, are graduates of the East Las Vegas school system and have degrees from Highlands. And after that, I got a free trip by Uncle Lyndon to go to Saigon for a while and didn't come back till I retired in 2005. Anyway, briefly, that's me. Met with the city manager a few weeks ago to talk about renewing our memorandum of understanding between the city and the Arts Council. It's been in place for quite some time, and neither it nor its predecessor were very descriptive of what was going on. As a new person on the Arts Council, I don't know exactly what they had in mind when they wrote those up, but it's going to be a good thing for us to get together and do that. Anyway, we also talked about at our meeting and did you get those? You got them all? Okay. You've got a copy of our community events calendar. The community events calendar put out in the community by community members started quite some time ago, probably 12 to 14 years ago. Carol Line, who many of you know, very active in the Nat Gold Players in the old days and also in the University WIM AAUW, started that as an email calendar, just typewritten, went out to, and she built the membership of that up to about 900 people were getting that. when she decided she wanted to retire from that, she offered it to the Arts Council. We took it over, put it onto some more sophisticated software, and we've been sending it out twice a month ever since. And we're up to almost 1,300 people who get that every other week. We cover things such as art events. We now have almost 15 galleries in the city that are having events, music events, large and small, government events, charity benefit events, educational opportunities. And what you've got in front of you is the latest edition of that calendar. And if you get far enough down till the 13th of April, you'll notice that the city's hiring fair is right there, in case any of our readers want to go to that event. So anyway, this is, the software formats this thing automatically to be readable either on iPhones, on tablets, on laptops, or on desktop computers. So it squeezes it one way or the other and reduces it and keeps it readable on all those different formats. And we think it's fairly valuable community service. We draw on calendars from the city, the Highlands, two school districts usually, and we have deadlines for things to be submitted, and they're not always met, but we also have our own secret ways of finding events, and we'll put them in if we find them. Anyway, regarding our activities, you have a second handout, which is just either the one front only, or front and back. You have 2 pages anyway. This is a summary of what we did last year. Last year was kind of a rebuilding year, as you might guess. You know, come back out of COVID, we thought we were getting going again, and then of course everybody got hit with the fires and the floods and the droughts. So I call it a year of fits and starts. But we did manage to put up 6 shows in the gallery. A couple of other shows. One pulled out when they threatened to evacuate downtown. The artists wanted their stuff back and they wanted to get out of town. And the next show after that, the people who were coordinating it didn't feel comfortable coming back. People were pretty upset and that kind of thing. Then we filled in with what we called the benefit show, which lasted for about a month and a half, put together rather quickly and produced around $8,000 in revenue for local charities. All of these works were donated by people in town who owned them, and so with the entire proceeds going to charity. So that was you have the other shows you can see. We got Missoula Children's Theater back going in July, and we were all set to have People's Fair in August, and then the drought happened.
Are you having it this year?
We are certainly hoping so.
Good.
We're on track to do that.
Wonderful.
We also developed a new little program to fill in gaps of pop-up displays, because sometimes you can get somebody with an idea that can put it up in a day and take it down after the weekend's over or something, when we have an unplanned for event. Our first set of those were called Frame-O-Ranima, because somebody donated to us picture frames and matting materials and mat cutters and various kinds of art paraphernalia. And we put those on sale at a very, very low price. And it was so popular, we just kept repopulating it. A couple weekends later, we do it again. And it was a very nice thing. We also had a very good holiday show last year. So anyway, that was what last year looked like. This year will be somewhat similar. But we also are thinking about how we can change the deliverables in our MOU with the city. The last 2 MOUs have basically had only one deliverable from us, which said we would be open daily from 8 to 5. Now, I don't think we've ever lived up to that at all, because daily is a lot of days. It doesn't say weekdays from 8 to 5. or it doesn't allow for times when we are closed, when we're taking down a show, putting up a show, when we're more like a construction area than a place. And 8 to 5 is kind of interesting because there aren't many people that want to go to an art gallery at 8 in the morning. If you look around the world, most galleries open at 10 or 11. And then if you really want to serve the public, you're open some in the evenings. And so kind of a mixture of when do people need a gallery. But within the facility, things go on all the time because when you have a show in there, the artist's there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. When you don't have a show, you're still storing supplies and equipment to do that. You still have a couple of workstations in there for the clerk and the volunteers that put things together. You can also have meetings come in there. We had the merchants and the city meet there when we were doing the road construction last year, or 2 years ago now, on Bridge Street. And they could have a meeting once a week in there. When the filming happens, we often have meetings hear updates from the city coordinator and the other, and the movie people. We also can have brief events. We just revive the publicity, at least, and the public face of the artists in the National Park program that has been dormant out at Fort Union for a couple of years because of COVID and other things. But this year they got an artist in residence, and they kind of lost track of who or what exposes that artist in the city. And we stepped in and offered that, and we had a very nice session with the artist in residence. So we can do musical events there, small ones. We can do readings. The Lit Salon has done poetry readings. Most of our winter programming in the Arts Gallery is for the school students. So a lot of things go on in that space. And that's about all I have to say. Anybody got a question?
No, just thank you for all the work that you and your group do. Been meaning to make it to one of your meetings, hopefully soon. Are you back in live meetings or are you still on Zoom?
Well, it's, most of the groups I'm in seem to not want to go back to real meetings.
Oh, yeah.
Takes all the travel time out of it, and they don't have to wear pajama bottoms or something. I don't know what it is, but
Yeah, I know.
they try it one time and then they say, "Gosh, this is awful hard."
Right.
And so Zoom is a great thing for a lot of people, but we do have face-to-face when we need to.
Okay. Thank you so much, Richard. We appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Mr. Mayor, we have consent agenda, if I may read them into the record.
Please.
Item 1, request approval of addendum number 2 to contract 378221 with James Cook and Hobson Incorporated for professional pump, motor, mechanical, and electrical services for the City of Las Vegas. Item number 2, request approval of addendum number 2 to contract 378321 with Mosen Corbin and Associates for professional engineering services for the solid waste facility. And item number 3, request approval of addendum number 2 to contract 378421 with Mosen Corbin and Associates for professional engineering services for the wastewater system.
Pleasure of the council.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the 3 items on the consent agenda.
There's a motion by Ms. Casey to approve the items in the consent agenda. Second, please.
Mr. Mayor, and
Second by Mr. Montoya.
these items did go before the Utilities Committee.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero? Yes. I have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving on to our business items. Our first item is conduct a public hearing and approval of a Restaurant A beer and wine liquor license with on-premises consumption only application for Stella's Cafe LLC.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to enter a public hearing.
There's a motion to enter public hearing by Mr. Romero.
Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Romero.
Montoya.
I'm sorry, Mr. Montoya. Roll call, please.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries. I would ask that if there's anybody in the audience that would wish to speak during this public hearing, to come forward. And I'm going to have Ms. Darlene Arguello swear us in because I need to be sworn in as well, and I can't swear in myself, so
Okay.
guess I'm the only one.
Please state your name for the record.
Do the Burskins want to be sworn in just in case they have questions?
Mr. Mayor, I guess the question would be as the questions to begin with.
Well, I don't know, but just in case they have to talk. I don't have any questions, but
I don't even.
Please state your name for the record and raise your right hand.
Janet Burskins.
Frank Burskins.
Cassandra Feskis.
Under the penalties of perjury, do you swear that your testimony will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
thank you. What's the pleasure of the council? Do we have any questions?
Mr. Mayor, if I just may.
Yes.
Go through, so we had Stella's Cafe LLC apply for this beer and wine liquor license back in January. And Alcohol Beverage Control Division did a preliminary approval. So then it came to us, and it's up for your consideration. We've met all the, actually the publication requirements as well as all zoning requirements.
Okay.
So I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions? I'll entertain a motion to go back into public session. There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero to go into open session again. Second, please. Second by Mr. Olivari. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Olivari. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve restaurant beer and wine liquor license on the premises for Stella's Cafe LLC.
There's a motion by Mr. Romero. Second, please. Second by Ms. Casey. Roll call us, please.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Casey? Yes. Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero? Yes. I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Casey. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries. Thank
And
you,
if you
Mayor and
haven't
Council.
been to their restaurant, it's so beautiful and quaint and really a delight to have Stella's there. So go by and support them and have a beer.
The bagels and lox are wonderful.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. Next order of business.
Moving on to item number 2, consideration of the City of Las Vegas and Las Vegas Police Officers Association, LVPOA Memorandum of Understanding regarding Section 16 compensation and Section 44 Terms of Agreement of LPOA Agreement 3848-22. We have our City Manager Leo Maestas and our HR Director Darlene Arguello.
Mr. Maestas?
Yes, Mayor and Council. So our last meeting, we brought this topic forth on an agenda item, and it was tabled with some direction given to us to go back to the table and talk about the terms of the agreement. I'll let Ms. Arguello speak of those terms.
Thank you. Thank you, Darlene.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. At this time, I'd like to introduce our LVPOA President, Fasanella.
Welcome, Mr. Fasanella.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, esteemed council
Thank you.
members for having us tonight.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to give him an opportunity to speak a little bit on what's being presented today.
So I was elected president of Nevada City Lodge number 20, Las Vegas Police Officers Association back in December. It's been a whirlwind. It's been a ride. It's been fun. It's been frustrating. It's been all of the above, but generally it's been positive. I would just like to say that the first thing that was brought to my attention by the bargaining members of the LVPOA and the admin was that the admin staff, chief, deputy chief, and commanders made it known to me that they were going to fight to give us raises, get us concurrent, comparable to department police officer pay across the state of similarly situated police departments and sheriff offices that meet similar demographics and tax revenue base comparable to the city of Las Vegas. In doing so, in my own research and talking with Fraternal Order of the Police lawyers and negotiators through this process, we started a process in which we asked for a certain number, dollar figure raise added to our pay plan. That process was a long process. It was a good process. I worked hand in hand with Ms. Arguello and the city manager, Mr. Lou Maestas, on this, and it was, it was a good learning experience for all involved. I think that we did good work. Because I was informed a proposal was given to the city manager's office by my administrative staff, where they had worked a budget and come up with an idea, a price range of what might get us to where we need to be, and what might be possible within our own police department budget. We went forward with that. They proposed this in August or September. The union became involved in January, first week of January, if memory serves, just because, well, we have a pay plan with the police department. Adjustments to the pay plan that do not directly involve the union, and adjustments to that contract are fraught with problems. And I experienced it myself under past administration too, where new officers coming in, non-certified, were making more than I was, that sort of thing. But that's just a personal experience. That has thus been fixed. It's no problem. I stand before you today, and the only thing that I need to say is that, once again, thank you for your time. But I really need to portray to you that the police department here is stretched very thin. Very, very thin. We have 3 officers, patrol officers, to patrol the entire district, the entire city, 1 per district. It's traditionally never really been that way. You have lieutenants taking a district, sergeants taking a district, supervisors that are doing the work of what a simple patrol officer, not that a patrol officer's job is simple, but what really should be done at that level. 3 officers to a crew. I'm currently serving as an investigator, a detective, if you will. We are so short that our Region 4 narcotics agents need to take up investigative cases. A few vacancies back there. I'd just like to read out just a couple quick figures here about that I've come up with. Excuse me. So currently, commissioned personnel, and that's commissioned personnel that the city have on order to enforce our local ordinances and state statutes here. Oh goodness, we have 6 police officer vacancies, 1 investigator vacancy. I know of another narcotics task force vacancy, and our narcotics agents doing dual roles right now. 2 lieutenant vacancies, communication manager, one of those. Non-certified police officer vacancies, there's multiple of those. 3 communication specialist dispatchers as well. I'd like also to say that dispatchers are part of our bargaining member unit. They are part of the union, and that division is there's 4 shifts weekly, and there's 4 people to work it. 12-hour shifts, and they work so hard. We recently hired a part-timer, but I'm just reading off these numbers to let you know that the situation is pretty dire. And we keep on losing good people to higher paying agencies, because we are in the bottom 20% statewide for police officers and their
their base pay. We've lost some really, really good experience to District 2 with state police, some very good experience. Members that have received, by your own hand, Mayor, Medals of Valor for bravery. It's a very, very prestigious award. I'm a recipient of that too, and to see my compatriot leave to state police because he's so overworked and underpaid here is very, very disturbing to us. It's come to the point too that if we continue to lose people, it's going to be a situation where Las Vegas Police Department really needs to evaluate whether or not we're going to be a 24-hour agency and available to our citizen.
24 hours, which is what this community wants, requires, and needs of all of us.
Just a couple figures, real quick, and then I'll turn it over to Ms. Arguello and Mr. Maestas here. In my preliminary research, excuse me, this is my paperwork here. A starting officer pay for Las Vegas, New Mexico starts at a base rate, we're talking police officer, of $18 an hour. And that's pretty decent until you compare it to similar municipalities. Base pay rate for a communication specialist or dispatcher is $13 an hour. That is not as comparable. However, the city of Roswell, their base pay rate, uncertified, is $22.37. They're doing a $10,000 sign-on bonus, and you can lateral transfer to them right now for $32.50 an hour. Silver City is $19.61 uncertified police officer, and they immediately bump up upon their certification from the New Mexico Law Enforcement Academy to $20.79. Gallup, uncertified, is $23.65 starting, with a $10,000 bonus. Excuse me, uncertified is $17.57. Once they become, with a $10,000 bonus, once they become certified, jumps up to $23.65. Clovis, uncertified, $19.64. And they can pay upwards of $29.47 an hour for their certified police officers if one of us want to lateral over to them right now.
We make $18 an hour. Our net for a new police officer is $39,312,
give or take. Alamogordo starts at $42,238 starting pay. A New Mexico State Police recruit, which is where we lose a lot of our people to, a lot of our experience, they come in at 20 uncertified as a recruit. The moment they get their certification, they pop up to 30, 50. And a lot of the guys that leave here, guys and girls, are men and women in uniform. My brothers and sisters in blue that go there are making 35, 30.
I know that we cannot compete monetarily with New Mexico State Police. I'm just saying that as a fact. Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office.
Your laterals right now will start, tier 1 will be $25.67, up to tier 3, $34.61, $10,000 sign-on. In San Miguel County, our own county, comes in at roughly our base pay. It's going to be about $19.50 an hour is their start. And they have a tier system too, where they come up.
On the 28th, thank you for calling and coming to the special meeting. I appreciate that. I know that that was all put in an executive session.
The only thing that I ask is that when I humbly request of council and city that in the future, I'm very new at this still, please work with me, but memorandums of understanding between the city and the LVPOA, as well as contract negotiations between the city and the LVPOA, are joint documents between our union and the city. And I hope, I humbly request of all of you to
recognize a union a little bit more going forward with that and keep us more abreast, as you can, of situations like that. Once again, thank you again.
Thank you for allowing me to speak, and I defer to Ms. Arguello and Mr. Maestas.
First of all, before you move on, there's a couple of things here. This agenda item was specifically to talk about the MOU and the increase, correct? I'd like to set a meeting with the chief and the union people and anybody else regarding recruitment for your department.
Yes, sir.
And I'd like that meeting to happen within the next week,
Yes, sir.
okay? And that's when we can discuss all those other things that I think that we need to address. But, and I know you're stretched. We know that. The whole world's in a hiring crisis. There's 350 job openings at the hospital. There's another 126 at the other hospital. Businesses like big corporations are thinking of leaving the city because there's no one to work. Everyone is in a staffing crisis. And we are doing everything we can to move as quickly. If you need to if your department needs a special recruitment effort or a recruitment specialist or a recruitment team, then we need to talk about that and how we're going to get people to join your force. Pay, I agree, is very important. It's, to me, you can't really compare our tax base between us and Roswell. Maybe us in Silver City, fair. The county, it's different. They have different officers that are available and so forth. I'm not saying that your concerns fall on deaf ears. I'm just saying that we need to be a little bit more proactive in this room. If we need to do a recruitment program, then we need to. And I'd like Darlene to be part of that meeting as well. Thank you. Mr. Romero?
Mr. Mayor, I had a question, just a comment that you made as far as keeping you abreast as far as the union, as far as the contract and that from the council. I don't know, it kind of seemed like you had the impression that the council doesn't support the union, or could you clarify that?
Oh, no, sir. Like I said, I'm new to this. It's been a trial by fire, and I've learned a lot. It was just, there was a lot of discussion that went on between myself, the city manager, and human resources to bring forward that last MOU. And to this day, I understand what stays in executive session needs to be kept secret. I still don't know what was discussed then. Will.
Yeah.
Fine, that's the protocol. But perhaps a consideration of just saying the consideration of having you present during those things would be appreciated. And I understand if that can't.
And let me go ahead and clarify, and I think this is kind of where the city of Las Vegas and, has failed in some perspective as to how union negotiations are handled. I know you guys have to submit a letter with your team, the city does it with our team, and it comes to the point to, if you read the contract, at the end of the day, this contract, it's, doesn't have the city, I'll go ahead and read it, because that was kind of one of the things that I wanted to address on these. The agreement in this is effective upon execution of this agreement and approval by the Las Vegas City Council. And I know sometimes people say, oh, well, the mayor or the city manager, and there's always been that confusion. And just in my professional development and contract negotiations with unions and stuff like that, there's always the issue, and this is where we failed, and I'll say we also, and even us as a complete as the city, is what happens is sometimes the unions talk with the chiefs, and that shouldn't be happening, or the unions talk with the city manager, and that shouldn't be happening. In order for this to all, to work out properly, of course, we have our discussions sometimes with individual members and stuff like that, and you've got to be very careful on the fine line that we walk, you know what I mean? But kind of what happened here, I think, is there was some discussion prior to, like you mentioned earlier in your statements, is that, some discussion amongst chief and the city manager, and, and that was kind of my concern with this whole issue, and that's why we brought up in executive session. And the reason why there is a specific language in the Open Meetings Act, in the perfect world, the way it should be done, so that way the city of Las Vegas, the team, is all on the same page as we have our, this item, kind of the way we did the other day, and say, hey, well, these are some of the issues that we need to address. Then that, from there, is discussed with the team, and the city manager discusses that team. Then that team discusses with your team, and of course, the chief is involved in some of this, but shouldn't be, directly involved at that point. So once all that happens, that way, because what could happen is if the city manager or the chief have their ideas, they work something out with you. Well, it comes to HR, there's a discrepancy, then you have that issue, then it comes to us. If we don't know what's going on, it comes to us, and we have our issues, then it could be the impression to the union that you guys were like, well, these guys don't know what's going on. Every time we go, it seems like we're getting the short end, if I can say it professionally. And that shouldn't be happening. We need to get together as a team prior to even you guys, according to the contract, when you guys submit, for your team and do the first procedure that you need to, we need to have that discussion as a team and say, hey, we think, and of course, even us, pays. If we had an unlimited checkbook, we would pay PD as we can, but we also have, a lot of other issues that, are also life safety issues that we have to address. So I think, this time, and of course, you did mention you were new. I think that's kind of where the issue was, and we got to be very careful because, again, we can't negotiate with you here in an open session, you know what I mean? And that's how come, things transpired the way it is, and I apologize if it made it seem like if, we were behind the scenes. It just, we were following the procedure that we should have. We sent the team to negotiate with you. You guys worked it out, and here we are today, you know what I mean? I think that's what happened. I just wanted to clarify that, every single one of us is a supporter of the unions. It's just, I think there was some missteps in this issue, and I just wanted to clarify that. That way, there's no bad sentiments that the council's anti-union. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Matua?
Yeah, I want to thank you for coming forward and putting your name out there, because it's not an easy thing to do. But in my seat, where I see things is, and I'm not blaming the union, this is the city's fault. And the way I look at it is, our finance department and our finance director should have all been involved since the beginning on this. I mean, you mentioned the collaborating over here, which is all fine and dandy, but without the dollar signs, I mean, you can kiss it goodbye. And, from where we see it, we can't just approve whatever comes before us. I mean, we got to look at the big picture, and we got to look at next year's budget. We haven't even approved next year's budget, and yet we're already committing salaries to next year. I mean, that's a no-no off the top. We understand where we're at, and a lot of times I'm sure that there's been some transfers and to other departments for whatever reasons, and I'll go there. I say some people don't quit companies, they quit managers. So if they don't like what's going on or whatever, they will move on to another department or transfer out and so forth. So there's all kinds of issues. Some people leave at will, some people leave because they have to. But overall, I mean, again, I want to say confirm what the mayor said is we can't compare ourselves on our tax base with $24 an hour, with Taos or with Espanola or with Santa Fe. They have a lot of gross receipt tax. They have a lot of tax that comes in. We're not in that situation here. We're a little bit way off to the side, so, not everybody wants to come to Vegas sometimes. So, and then on the other hand, keep in mind, since you're going to be here next year, we have our utilities department, and those are underpaid. We have staff in here that are underpaid. We have employees married with children starting pay at $12, $13 an hour. We got to consider. We considered the fireman's contract. We're considering yours. We still have ASME. We still got to work with everybody. And I'm telling you, I'm not going to sacrifice one department for the whole city. That's where I stand. I mean, we're all a part of it, and we're all going to take care of each other. So, just be conscious that we are trying to work as diligently as we can, but again, we need to look at the numbers and what's going to happen in the future. Because I don't want to be sitting here 2 years from now laying off people. I don't want to put a freeze on hiring and so forth. Because budgets do that to you if you're not very careful on those. But I thank you.
Thank you. Darlene, go ahead.
Okay, so, since our last proposed MOU, we've gone back to the table and, excuse me, we've, renegotiated and we've, come to an agreement that, today we're proposing a $2 increase rather than a $4 increase. And, the only other change on the MOU right now is that, the LVPOA would not forego negotiations for FY '24. So we will be opening, full opener, to include compensation in December of this year.
Good. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Yes.
Of our finance director.
In the charts that we received in our council packet, we have the numbers, showing the dollars that are necessary for current staff. And one of them shows $147,327.35. And then vacancies, 98,430 for a total of $245,757.35. So is the vacancy savings money being used to reach that 245? Is that what that means?
Yes, that would assume that we are fully staffed
Okay.
at the current situation.
Okay, so then when we renegotiate, we will have hopefully more money to fill those vacancies. Okay.
And that's the hopes to get a fully staffed police department with this proposal, and that would be the current fiscal impact.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was reading it correctly. Thank you.
What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I had one last question.
Mr. Romero?
On the lieutenants, are those included in the prior contract or just in this MOU?
No, they're included.
They are included in the current contract?
Yes.
Okay. That was one of my questions. And the other question, and I just wanted to make sure on this, and I don't know if we could add the language that, of course, I know there was some language in this contract, but not in this amendment, but it talks about the MOUs. And I just wanted, and I know I had brought this up, is that, we have that the MOUs are ratified by city council.
And we did talk about that, Counselor. And, we will be adding that language.
Because I know in discussion with our attorney, through the city manager, there was the discussion that she's under the impression that the city manager is allowed to do MOUs, which is correct to a certain extent, and I think I brought this up. MOUs for parks, MOUs for those non-monetary issues, but when it does affect the budget, then that's when it has to be ratified by council, and I just want to clarify
And
that.
we're all with the understanding that it does have to come before,
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion. Yes, Ms. Casey.
I move approval of the Las Vegas, City of Las Vegas and Las Vegas Police Officers Association Memorandum of Understanding regarding Section 16, which is compensation, and Section 44, the terms of agreement, with agreement number 3848-22.
There's a motion on the floor. Second, please. Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Romero? Yes. Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari? Yes. Have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Olivari. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Fasanella, and thank you, Darlene, for working so hard on this, and Mr. Maestas. Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Moving on to item number 3, request approval of the restructuring of the Police Department, Utilities Department, and City Attorney's Department organizational charts. We have our HR Director, Darlene Arguello, and Mr. Maestas.
Good evening, council. As we went through, we identified a few different positions that were listed incorrectly on a few of those different work charts. and within those three different departments, and I'll allow Ms. Arguello to kind of elaborate on those.
Okay, so currently, we are requesting on the city attorney org chart, to remove the paralegal position and put a legal assistant. Only because I think a paralegal is a little harder to recruit. And the legal assistant, serves more with administrative duties and research as opposed to the paralegal that's just strictly, research. So we need, that person to come in and assist with the city attorney's office. Currently, I'm assisting with the city attorney's office, and I just don't wanna miss anything, or, I think the need for somebody to come in to assist in that office is dire at this point. The next one is the police department. We have 3 full-time positions that exist for animal care center technicians. One is currently filled. We have 2 vacant. We are requesting that we take one of the full-time and make it 2 part-time positions. We're seeing more applicants that are wanting part-time work rather than full-time. So we're gonna see if that's more efficient for operations. The utilities department, we currently have a bill customer service representative 3 that should technically be classified as a line locator. So we would just be, this position previously existed, and then somewhere along the lines, it changed to a locate person, and then it fell off the org chart. I don't know where that happened, but we need to bring it back.
Any questions, anybody? Ms. Casey?
So on the, I'm gonna take them one at a time here. By doing the, yeah, it's so noisy. By changing from paralegal to legal assistant, will the pay also change?
It will, it's probably gonna be a lower pay grade,
Okay.
yes.
And on the police department for the animal care center, I read this, I don't know how many times. The more I read it, it was like, what are they doing? So we want to add 1 part-time animal care technician.
It would be 2 part-time. So we're taking one full-time and making it into 2 part-time positions.
Okay, so we're going to keep the 1 full-time position that we have.
Yes,
And then of the others that are, the other 2 that are vacant, the full-time positions.
we have 3 full-time positions currently. 1 is filled. We have 1 that's, 2 that are vacant.
Yeah.
We're taking one of the vacancies and making it 2
Making it
2
2.
part-time positions.
Okay, so then we will still have 1 full-time.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, it's kind of unfortunate that we have to do this, or bring the whole thing, and I don't know, the personnel policy, is there the ability to change that to where it gives the city manager, because nowadays, I mean, we know times have changed and people don't want to, mothers, want to work maybe part-time or do flex schedules or whatever, and we're at the point, Mr. Mayor, I think we've discussed this amongst ourselves, and that was one of the reasons why this position came up is, I think animal care center is something that, we don't want to see fail, We know we took a lot of heat and a lot of slack for it. So I personally have been asking, when people say, hey, do you have any jobs? I say, hey, go apply at the care center, right? Because to me, it's a good paying job, what they're starting at, and we still can't get them. But one of the issues that came up was, of course, they couldn't work a full-time schedule. And to me, any time that they could work is better than what we have right now. But that's not the only department, utilities and some of these others that, hey, if we could get somebody part-time and then go work, half a day or certain days a week, that's better than what we have now. And it's unfortunate we have to do this, but I'd rather just, change maybe the personnel policy or whatever to where we give the ability to HR or whoever, that if somebody wants to fill it and we can't fill it after a certain amount of time, well, let somebody do a flex schedule. And then I think the flex schedule, if you kind of look at the data now, more organizations and municipalities and companies are doing flex schedules and it's working out. Instead of having somebody come in from 8 to 5, they're allowing parents come in from 10 to 2, and I think if that's something we could address, and I don't know, Darlene, what your opinion is in HR or?
Yeah, that's definitely possible. I'm currently working on the personnel ordinance and bringing it as a whole, because there's a lot of revisions and updates. So I'm kind of finalizing that. I'm gonna work with city manager on getting a second set of eyes and all that. We just haven't really had the time to actually sit there and focus on it.
And I know it's hard, and I know it's probably frustrating. It just, without the help there at that place, and then not only that place, but of course, there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of spotlight and, and there's people waiting in this community to see us fail, and we can't have that, and it's unfortunate it had to take so long for that to come here, for us to do that, although, a city manager and yourself were, wanting to do that, but you have to follow policy, and it just kind of frustrating on that part, policies follow there, and other times it's, so we need to be more.
There are a lot of applicants that want to work part-time, rather than full-time, so.
And I think if it's possible now with the flex schedule, and I don't know if there's something in here that we could change that to where it gives you the ability right away, that way you could kind of determine based off of your hiring.
We can,
It's just,
bringing the org chart.
Yeah.
well, not only that, you also have union to contend with.
Right.
Union will demand,
Members.
huh?
Members.
So you have to be considerate when you make a change like that it's going to apply to everyone and everything, and it's going to be fair across the table, and the union will remind you of that. So,
Goes back to our input, Mayor,
relationship
where
with
we
the union
give
right now,
direction
so.
to our union team to say, hey, fight for that.
yeah, exactly. That's what negotiation's all about.
Thank you.
Some more questions?
Mr. Montoya?
So Darlene, so on part-timers, do they qualify for 100% insurance?
No,
No,
no, they do not.
at all, or no?
Do they qualify for sick leave and annual leave?
They do.
Okay. All right, next order of business? Yeah, I know. Okay, roll call. There's a motion and a second.
There's no
A motion and a second.
there's no motion.
Oh, well, that's what I'm asking for then.
I move approval, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion on the floor for approval. Second, please.
Second?
Second by Mr. Romero. Motion by Ms. Casey. Roll call list, please.
Counselor Montoya? Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Romero. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Darlene, for being here, for staying up with us.
Moving on to item number 4, request approval for out-of-state travel for 4 police personnel to attend an FBI LEDA Executive Leadership Institute training from June 5th through June 9th, 2023. We have our Police Chief, Antonio Salazar.
It's a pleasure, the council.
Mr. Mayor, I have a quick question.
Yes.
In reading this, it says that this is the third and final class in the program. I'm just wondering, and the information that we got in our packet say that you will be attending that, Chief?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and this is the first time I've seen your name.
On the list of people requesting, permission to go to training. So did you do the first and second classes?
No, ma'am, but these courses, it's an executive training. They don't have to be done in order, so you can take them whichever order you can, or whichever order you do.
Okay, so you'll be taking 1 and 2 at a later date?
Yes, I will be going back and taking 1 and 2.
Okay, great, thank you. That's my only question.
Mr. Montoya?
Chief, so you're short-staffed and having 4 people out of the department's not gonna affect you?
the ones taking this training is all command level officers, which we need, and it's very beneficial for our command and leadership and having to manage employees and manage police officers.
And are you all traveling in one vehicle or?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve this state travel.
Mr. Mayor, I second, but I have one last question. Or I guess, or comment, I guess. So when the woman from the LEADA grant came to present, there was one thing that she mentioned, and I tried to bring it up, but you guys couldn't hear me, that we only had one, what is it called when you have to submit to them for,
Are you talking about the only one person has completed the full training?
no, it has nothing to do with the training. It has more to do with for the patients, one, what is it called when you,
Certification for,
to get that person in the program, there has to be,
certified sponsor?
Prerequisite?
Oh, so I know what you're asking.
Yeah.
So they have to be at a certain level in their, I guess in the position. Is that what you're asking? In a certain position in order to qualify for
no,
this?
like our PD, it was the PD and the sheriff's office, but I mean, of course, that's out of our control, but the PD, I know they had brought up some other agencies, and we only had one person that was basically recommended into the program for LEADA. So wouldn't we?
Nominated?
There's a word for it, when a patient is,
I guess possibly recognized. I don't know if this answers your question, but we do currently have one person that has completed the trilogy for this training.
it has nothing to do with the training, it's more with you getting the people into the program, the LEADA for the help that they need.
Certified?
I can't think of.
Qualified?
Qualified is probably one of them.
A prerequisite.
She used the term, and I can't think of it now, but. And
It only says on here, law enforcement officers.
it has nothing to do with the training, it's, we want to help, we're getting the LEADA, we're in the LEADA program to get the people the help that they need instead of, but we have to recommend the patients to the program so they can get the help that they need. If that-
So I know what you're talking about. It's not the LEADS program. Are you
Oh,
talking
this
about
one's
the-
different, okay.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
So,
Okay.
well, I mean, I can go on that. We are currently working on we actually have several potential candidates for leads, so we're going to forward those
Okay,
over
it's different, okay.
to Miss Tiffany, but this one is strictly executive
I'm sorry.
training.
Thank you. So where am I?
Got it.
Motion.
Roll call.
I second it.
There's a motion by Montoya, second by Romero. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, a second by Counselor Romero. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 5, request approval of Resolution 2311, an agreement to accept a grant offer administered by the Federal Aviation Administration and the New Mexico Department of Transportation Aviation Division in the amount of $306,640 for apron and hanger taxi lane markings and TWYB pavement seal at the City of Las Vegas Airport. We have our Public Works Director, Arnold Lopez.
So move, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion on the floor. Second, please. Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Romero? Yes. Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya? I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, a second by Counselor Olivari. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries. Moving on to item number 6, request approval to award RFB 2023-09 to Desert Fox Paving for the construction, reconstruction, pavement rehabilitation, drainage improvements, ADA compliant curb and ramps and miscellaneous construction on Legion Drive in the amount of $3,768,932.53 to include New Mexico GRT.
So move, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion on the floor for approval. Second, please.
Second.
Second by Ms. Casey. Roll
Mr. Mayor,
call,
I have a,
please.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero?
So Arnold, on this one, the subcontractor is who on this?
The subcontractor listed is Hayes, one of the subcontractors underneath there.
Okay, and for the record, the award recommended here tonight, they did actually do the payment in the plaza area, am I correct, or?
Desert Fox did, yes.
Okay, and I guess my concern here has been, number one, that And make the mayor was frustrated. I'm asking questions. Go ahead.
No, no, I'm not. You can ask questions.
Okay. So I guess my question is, I have some issues with the subcontractor. If we go around through our streets, there's a lot of issues. I'm not the only one, and I wish that there would have been a little more questions, but I guess I'll be the only one to always ask them. There comes a point to where we have to hold them accountable, and I'm just curious with all the different jobs, we did approve some other stuff here tonight on a consent agenda, is where's the performance accountability on this, and what are we gonna do that? Because I think that, I'm not happy with some of the road projects, and to me, I'd rather try somebody, that's my opinion. But I'm just curious as to how performance came into it without some of the issues that, I've seen the plaza area and there's cracks and there's everything, and I keep hearing, well, it's under warranty. But, you get something done, you fix it right away. You don't wait till it's almost the 1 year and then we, forget about it. And so that's my concern with this, and I'll leave it at that if nobody wants to ask questions, and thank you.
Thank you for, can I respond, please?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for that question. Yes, there is a lot of concerns of failures within not just that project, but even on the Great Blocks project as well. And we're holding these contractors responsible to correct these actions. And I had a conversation with project manager Marvin today in regards to scheduling to address all the concerns and failures within all these projects. And they are scheduling with all the other contractors that have, failures and stuff that we're not happy with. And we do have quality control. For example, on Legion, we'll have quality control both through the engineering firm and our management team as well. And we're gonna assure that we get what we pay for. That's our responsibility, and we're gonna hold to it, and we're gonna make contractors responsible for providing a excellent job on all these projects.
I've brought this up several times before, and now maybe that Tasha's here, they can do a contract evaluation for every project that's done. And that way, if they come back at us and they want a job, we can disqualify them because we're not satisfied. We can disqualify them right away. Not that there's so many contractors willing to do a lot of work in Las Vegas, but we need to know which contractors are performing to our expectation, and how are we doing that? We need a contract evaluation. It's almost a miracle that the auditors have not found that we're not evaluating contracts. Because most organizations have a process where you would go and you would evaluate them. Were they nice to work with? Were they prompt? Were they professional? Was their product, everything? And it's an easy sheet. I sent it to several people already. It's a contract evaluation form. And for every contract that's out there, we evaluate that contract. And that way, we get rid of the bad ones. That way, we can exclude them if they bid on further jobs. We can just say we haven't been satisfied with them. But without having that documentation, it's very hard for us not to move forward. So I'll send it out again to finance and to manager and see what they think of it. It's an easy form. It's nothing complicated. It's 10 questions, and you sign off on it.
And I've dealt with trying to not give a contractor a contract, and it's very difficult if you don't have the documentation that you're talking about. Legally, they'll hold you responsible, and you'll have to give them the contract if you don't have their proper
Exactly.
record and documentation of their failures.
That's my point.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then if I may, to inform mayor and council, so at 3.7, that is over budget, okay? But we had a discussion with city manager, our engineering firm, careful discussion as to how we could bring it into the 3.5 budget. And we're very confident that we can do that without sacrificing quality in the project and without reducing the scope of work to the project too. And the consideration would be to recycle some of the materials, primarily the base course. So once we mill, we will reuse the base course instead of removing and replacing it. So it'll be carefully evaluated to make sure that there's no subgrade failure, and also that the base course, it will be, sufficient to utilize. But we're gonna recycle some of the materials to bring the cost down, to bring it within that 3.5 budget. And then also, there's a lot of sidewalks that are in really excellent shape. They're slightly out of ADA compliance, but it's just on the cross slope. And we're gonna ask DOT, if we need to, for a variance where we can leave some of the sidewalks that, and it's very slight, you wouldn't even hardly notice it, but if you put a smart level to it, they are slightly out of that ADA compliance. But we do have a plan. And then, of course, if we are gonna award it to the contractor for the pre-construction, we will enter into negotiations with them as well to upfront bring down the cost and bring it to within budget.
Montoya?
Yeah, no, I just want to assure Mayor and Council and the public that, I want to thank Arnold because I was involved in all the process as far as we had 7 contractors that met out at Hannah Park on Legion and that were interested on doing this project. And out of those 7, 4 of them went and bid on it. And it's like Mr. Arnold says, it's a $3.7 million project. We only had 3.5, and we excluded the lighting. There will be no lighting. We had put in I think the lowest bid was $216,000 for LED solar lighting. That's not going to be in place.
Does that meet regulations from DOT?
So that was actually bid out as a bid alternate, so that would have actually increased the project amount. But, so it's not gonna take place because there's no funding for it, which would have been nice, but at some point we can revisit, purchasing through the city or something, additional lighting for those areas.
That lighting basically was going to be from the Hannah Park over to 7th Street, because that's the most trafficked area, foot traffic.
I'm
And
just wondering if DOT approved that we're going to do this without lighting.
No.
Yes.
Mayor and Council, if I may.
I wouldn't.
There's existing lighting that's owned by PNM.
Yeah.
This was to add additional lighting to the already existing lighting to the project. There was the base project, the base scope of work, and there was 2 add alternates. We didn't have enough in the budget to do the 2 add alternates.
And then the other thing, I had questions the last meeting we had about the process, about the bids and so forth, and I came to the bidding process and I observed. And, I really want to thank staff. They did a professional job at it. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. And then the engineer, of course, has done an excellent job also with the plans. And I met with him and staff, and probably be about 3 times before this project even hit the drawing board. So.
What's the pleasure of the council?
I just had one more comment.
Ms. Casey?
Okay, thank you. So this is the same company that did the paving around the Plaza Park and Bridge Street?
Yes, ma'am.
I have some real concerns about this because if they're going to be doing ADA compliant curb and ramps, I don't think they know what that means because they didn't do that at the Plaza Park. They didn't do it on Bridge Street. I have seen people falling. I've seen people driving over some of those things that stick out into the road. I think they did a very substandard job. And if that's what they consider ADA compliant, they don't know what it is.
I may,
And
Counselor
so
Casey.
I'm not real happy about this.
So, so let me correct my answer when you asked if the contractor's the one that did the project. So they did the paving around the plaza. They didn't do the concrete work. So they were subcontracted by Hayes Plumbing, I believe. Okay, because that was kind of before I started. But, so Hayes was the Yeah, it's kind of swapped around now, basically. So now they're the prime contractor and they're subcontracting some of the work out to Hayes. Okay, but still, it's in your same concern.
Well, same difference.
So on this particular project, because it's DOT's money, so you go out and you do verifications with DOT to make sure that everything is within compliance. So there's a lot of quality control when it comes to like DOT monies, and in order for them to reimburse you, it's got to be done to specifications.
I don't know. I'm not convinced.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to make one other comment, and this is just talking with contractors from around the state and asking why they don't submit to the city. You know, we were very fortunate, thank you, Councilor Montoya, for saying there was 7. But what happens is we give the same work to the same people again. So what happens next when we do it again? We're only going to end up with 1. And it's unfortunate. We continue to do it, and I'm just saying I'm not, performance around the city and that, I'm not happy with the way things have gone. I think there's justification enough, but Mr. Mayor, you take a roll call.
Mr. Mayor, just a clarification, if we have $2 million somewhere,
I mean, let's get Pacheco. I mean, I don't have $2 million. I don't see where, I mean, I worked for this funding. I lobbied for this funding. And staff worked hard to get that funding, and we qualified for it. But if we have $2 million or even $1.5 million more somewhere, let's get another company. I mean, we can do that. And we'll take the consequences of the low bidder coming back and suing us. I mean, that's the nature of the animal.
There's always the option of, not accepting the bid, rejecting it, and then bidding it out again, but it's gonna be a delay, but that's one of the
The
options.
more
that we
delay you
Yeah.
have, the higher the price goes,
Yeah.
because things ain't cheaper. And the thing is that some of these companies, I mean, where the numbers are is on the mobilization sometimes, and sometimes it's on the material. So if they have where to get material here, around here, more accessible and not have to haul it from Santa Fe or something like that, well, that's where they outbid these other guys. It's not an easy process. I don't know if this company are they building a plant here for this?
From what I heard, and I don't know if it's just rumor, but I've heard that they bought the old Melendez, which used to be Sierra Transit way back in the day, that they bought that and they're gonna establish a hot plant and are gonna start producing asphalt here locally, but I don't know if that's just rumor, if it's true.
All those things gotta be, considered when, on this RFPs, no? And, I mean, it's a doggy world out there, what can I say? I mean, staff tried to get the numbers to where they needed to be, and still we were short. And they're willing to work with us, so, I mean, we're getting what? $2 million break there?
At the end of the
By having to
day-
do that.
At the end of the day, it boils down to our quality control.
Yeah.
It's, we have to not accept secondary work, straight up, that's it. It's our responsibility to get the best possible job for our money, And
And that's
hold
why
contractors accountable.
That's how I told Councilman Ilivari, when those projects that we approved on King Street and those areas, I told him, get involved since the beginning. That way, at the end of the day, at the end of the product, I mean, you included sidewalks, curves, and whatever needed to be done.
And I don't want to disrespect you, Councilor Montoya. It has nothing to do with the funding and how we got it. I think we all do the lobbying. I think the point I'm trying to make here is that when a project is done, we have the cracking. We have some spots in the plaza area that they're sinking. The actual brand-new pavement is sinking. So 1 year, it's been 1 year, a year and a half maybe. How many spot patches do we have filled right now? That's the issues that I have, and that's what I say, is where's the accountability? I mean, we had our city manager there every single day, and it still happened. I mean, he can't control all that stuff. It happens, and what happens, that then they have to be the bad guys on top of it. But we continue to, well, we're okay with it, we're okay with it. I'm sorry, but the community isn't happy with spot patches on new pavement, and I'm not happy. I mean, I've even said, well, when they do this, have them paint. I mean, there's some stuff that we need to do that it seems like we're satisfied with mediocrity, and that's wrong. I mean, and if we continue to use the same one, we're gonna continue to, it's like they say, I mean, there's that saying, and I won't say it, but, you know, I mean, there's a first and a second, and we'll just take a roll call and.
And I hear you, Councilman Romero. I mean, I'm frustrated with that project in front of the church too on West National. I mean, I told the city manager about it since day one, that they needed to go back and do it right. And I don't even know if they're done yet. I don't think the striping's even done yet. So I'm not, is that still a work in progress or?
So there's repairs. There was soft spots that ended up in failures because there was utility work that was done prior that was probably not tamped properly. So that's why we haven't striped it, because they have to go back and do the repairs, sir.
So it's our own, it was basically our own fault on those soft spots.
No, it was a contractor that did the line, the replacement of a water line.
And I agree with accountability, and it's like the mayor says, I mean, if there's a form that we need to fill out after the project's done and grade them and rate them, and then if they fail, well, they get deducted points or we don't hire them, you know. But that's where that's at. I think we had one contractor already that, we had to replace and when specs don't meet and asphalt specs don't meet, well, we have no choice. And that's the bottom line.
We have a first and a second, please. Roll call.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
No.
Counselor Romero?
No.
Mr. Mayor, we have a tie.
Yes, with the caveat that we have to maintain quality. I know where this project is. I know how fast it has to move. We stand of losing funding if we don't use this money. But we have to concern ourselves more about the quality. And I want to institute that contract evaluation as soon as possible so that we can start using on every contract that we have out there. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Next order of business.
Moving on to item number 7, request approval of a lease agreement for hangar space with Mr. Ray Valdez. Mr. Lopez.
So we're seeking approval to lease this hangar space to Mr. Ray Valdez. It's the lease agreement reads for up to 10 years. The purpose of storing his aircraft. He's been in that particular hangar for quite a few years. Apparently, his lease has expired, so he is seeking for a new lease agreement.
What's the pleasure of the council?
Move approval, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion to approve. Second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call, please.
Counselor Romero? Yes. Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Casey? Yes. I have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries. Moving on to item number 8, request approval to award RFP 2023-10 for on-call commercial plumbing services to New Image Construction, all-in-one excavation, and Hayes Plumbing and Heating. We have our Utilities Director, Maria Gilroy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. First, I'd like to announce, and this is going to go for all three of them, actually 2 of the 3, sorry. I'd like to go ahead and address it. My son does work for Hayes Construction, or Hayes Plumbing. So I'd like to request approval to award RFP 23-10 for commercial plumbing services. So these plumbing services are like the work we're having done out at the utilities building for replacing of the sewer lines, for some work at the wastewater facility. They've got a lot of issues out there when we had that P&M failure. that they're having to change out some pumps and some sewer lines and a lot of infrastructure out there. So we need actually more than one. We've recently, with all the ARPA funding, had New Image do multiple projects. We want to try this new company, All-in-One Excavation, and still use Hayes Plumbing. Yes, we have had some concerns, so they're not the priority. They were not ranked the highest, but we still want to be able to use them for areas where we're going to need additional services. So we actually, in this case, wanted to go with all three so that we could select the use of the proper plumbing company for that work.
Questions, concerns? Mr. Romero?
So Maria, on this awarding of the three, what is the transparent part that you're using to ensure the way the work will be spread out? That, we could, and I'm not saying this is happening, but, just in this perspective, that we have all three, but yet only one gets the job. What are we doing to be transparent that every single one that we're awarding here today, whether it's, you could select one, but performance and that, what's the transparent process that you're using for this?
So the first process is my directive to project management to make sure that we're spreading out these projects. In addition, we work directly with the entity that's requesting the services to make sure that we're selecting the right company. Every single one of these goes through the city manager. So
What's the documented, and I know this happens with the towing services. I'll use that for an example. We have all these towing companies, and there's a process where if they call somebody, then they check mark, and then they go to the next, if they don't, so what's the public record process that we use to, in case somebody were to ask, well, you only select this one, what's our method in covering and say, hey, well, look, this is why they were selected? What's the process we're using for
that's a good question.
transparency?
I didn't really have a process lined out. I can do a 1, 2, 3 and just go down each line. My concern with that was it may not be the right plumber for that service. And so that's why we were going to use recommendations from the manager of the division that's needing the services. They have different experiences with different types of work. New Image recently did a lot of great work for us with manholes. Really like the work they're doing there. There may be a need for pumps from a different plumber. So I'm not really comfortable just saying, let's do 1, 2, and 3.
I get that, but I'm just saying that there has to be something that we say, well, the reason why.
So we can log that.
We select that, so that way, if questions are asked to us, well, why is a certain individual doing every single thing for the city? And it's happening, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
And
so
you're
we need
correct.
to have as a justification as a government entity to say, well, this is why A was selected over B. And it just, again, goes back to transparency and how things are being done.
Absolutely. So one of them is all of our records are always available. If anybody ever wants to ask, we can do that. We can also log that on our determination when we select that plumber as to why we're using them, and I can make it available to the city manager as we recommend, as we run that requisition through to say they're, all in one. This is a small project. I haven't used them before. I want to try them on this project because it's a small project, and then maybe actually put that in the procurement process.
Thank you.
Sure. So,
Mr. Montoya?
Maria, Image Construction is from where?
Rivera?
Rivera? Yes. And how many employees do they have?
They have, I actually can't answer that. I can get back to you on that. I know they've been having like 3 or 4 employees out at the job sites that we've been working on. And then one thing that they've brought to the table that has been unique is the pipe bursting. We hadn't had a plumber do pipe bursting, which is a lot less expensive and a lot less intrusive, and they've been bringing that to the table. But that's a subcontracted work.
What about All-in-One? Where are they from?
I can't answer that.
And how many employees do they have?
I believe they have 3 or 4 employees as well.
And Hayes Plumbing, where are they from?
Hayes Plumbing is from Las Vegas.
And how many employees do they have?
Between their plumbing and their, the water, the wastewater, and their electrical and plumbing services, I believe they have about 12 employees, 12 to 15 employees.
Okay.
That's one thing about Hayes is that they have 2 different, 2 different fields. And so there will be one later that's on the pumps and motors. That's totally different than the work that they do with sewer lines, water lines, that kind of stuff.
And one last question. So what's the going rate on this? Because there was no going rates on this at all. So who establishes that? Or are they all equal or what?
So these
Or
are
depends on the
RFPs.
project?
These are RFPs. We're not allowed to ask for dollar amounts in RFPs. But what we do is, if the council approves this, then we go back and we require them to produce rate sheets. And the rate sheets will be included in the contract, which is something else we would use to determine if one contractor comes in and everything is sky high, that would be a determining factor to negotiate with them to bring it down or not use them.
Okay, thank you.
So that hopefully that helps with both questions.
Thank you. With that, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve an award RFP 2023-10 for an on-call commercial plumbing services to all three companies.
There's a motion on the floor by Montoya, second.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Casey?
I was hoping you wouldn't call me first. Yes.
Counselor Romero? Counselor Montoya?
Stage first.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, a second by Counselor Olivari. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Can I make a quick
Sure.
request here? Maria, when you, thing isn't working. Please, make a special request of the employees of Hayes Plumbing. Now, when they start a project, that they just don't leave in the middle of the day and leave people hanging with water gushing into their yards and into their driveways, and just leave it like that forever. I received so many phone calls that I had to call our city manager, who was wonderful in tracking everybody down and getting them there. He did the same thing on a Sunday, and I want to thank Mr. Lopez also for helping out with that on Hot Springs Boulevard. Same thing. I had water lines that were shut off on 5th and 6th Street. I had everybody on that area calling me up, like my phone never stopped ringing all day. And again, I had to enlist the help of the city manager to get things going. You know, if they say they're going to have the water back on at a certain time, people are willing to go a little bit over that time if they don't have water. But 3 hours later and they still have no water and they're wondering if they're going to have it the next day is not acceptable.
So, Councilor
And
Casey,
so-
City Manager did talk to me about that one, and I apologize to you, as well as to all of our residents that were impacted by that. There are occasions when things do go outside the control of the contractor, and what we're going to be doing is, if there is a valid reason, we will be going door to door. City staff will be going door to door to make sure that we inform all customers as to what the delay is, so that they're not surprised. And I do apologize, that never should have happened, and I've already addressed it with the contractor, and I will absolutely love to address that with them again.
Thank you very much.
I was not happy either when I was notified.
It's very frustrating to hear people that are upset, you know, and
Yes, ma'am.
thank you.
Mayor and Council, if I may, I just wanted to bring to your attention, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Maria, in last year's on-call for plumber, the same services, we only had one.
Correct. Yes, we only had one. My project management staff have been trying to encourage other other companies to propose, so that we have more options. I don't want to discount a local contractor. I'd like them to fix their issues. At the same point, I need choices. And that's why I appreciate the ability to have choices here, so that we can, it's easier for me to say no and still get the project done.
Right. Understood. Thank you.
Mayor, moving on to item number 9, request approval to award RFB. That should be a RFB, not an RFP. That was a typo on my part. 2023-06 for Clearwell effluent pumps and motors to Hayes Plumbing and Heating Incorporated. Ms. Gilvery?
So this project is funded by DWSRF. We have funds to replace some pumps and motors at the water treatment plant that are over 40 years old. So this will be this is actually a fairly simple project of replacing those pumps. We should be able to get those pretty quickly and get them installed and get them changed out. Hayes was the only proposer on this, and amazingly, they came in well below the amount of funding that we have from the state. Then the state has authorized us to extend that funds and be able to use any additional funds at Story for some pumps that we could use at the pump house. This one was recommended approval by the engineer that's in charge of that project, which is Bohannon Houston, and was also recommended approval by the Construction Programs Bureau, Andrea Telmo.
It's a pleasure of the council.
Sorry, and Utility Advisory Committee recommended approval on this one, and by the way, on the last one too. Sorry about that.
May I move approval of RFB 2023-06 for Clearwell effluent pumps and water motors to Hayes Plumbing?
There's a motion by Ms. Casey, second.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Montoya.
And I was there to confirm the recommendation by the Utilities Committee.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
I just want to make a comment before my vote, is it's difficult to hear that they have 12 employees and all these contracts that we got. So we kind of puts in perspective now as you wonder why all these things kind of take time. So, I mean, but we need it and it's hard. Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
And if I might, Councilor Romero, on that one, so the crews that would be working on this type of thing don't work on the other projects that we've been having issues with. So it is, they have 12 employees, but some of them are distinctly separate, and they only work on pumps and motors.
I mean, even though they're 12, separate so many and then there's only so many. So when we have all these things and you're pulling, I mean, not to say
Right.
you're pulling them in different areas, 3 are here, oh shoot, we got to take off this road. We're going to leave the water going until we get a chance.
Right, that's.
I'm just putting in
Absolutely, and that's why one of the things we're looking at is something like Baca, Parkview, Independence, and Hot Springs. Those would be the same type of employees in those 4 projects, and then this would be a different crew. So we need to limit or control a little bit better, making sure that they have the right number of people for the projects they're doing.
Question, Mr. Mayor.
So Maria,
Yes.
this was advertised in various
Yes.
places,
Yes, Counselor.
and this was the only sole proposal.
Yes.
So if you didn't have this, what would you have?
We would have to go back out for bid again, and we would have to request a second extension on the funding.
Okay. So if we want to approve this tonight, that's what you would have to do.
Yes.
And you'd probably still have the same results.
I would, probably with a different price.
Yes, thank you.
There's a motion. Please roll call.
Moving on to item number 10.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Request to award RFP 2023-07 for commercial electrical services to Electric Horseman Incorporated. Ms. Maria.
In this case, we did only have one proposer, and that does kind of happen a lot. I don't know of another electric company in town. So Electric Horseman, and they've actually done a lot of really good work for us. Dennis and his crew are really good.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion by Mr. Romero, second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call, please.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
A motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries. Moving on to our final item, discussion direction on recruiting and hiring a city attorney. Mr. Mayor?
So there's definitely a need for an attorney. We can't almost go on further with the help of Municipal League. I am open to an RFP for somebody who may be able to work part-time. Also, of course, our desire would be full-time. That's our number one desire, but at this point, we have no takers. So maybe setting up or sending out an RFP for 3 days a week and available at call. Something like that, that they, they're allowed to do their other thing, their other law practices, whatever they're doing, but they have, my recommendation would be that we maybe have them even 3 days or 2 days with at-call service. That's just my idea. Let me clarify by saying there's nothing like having a full-time attorney. That is not coming to fruition, and we need access to an attorney. So this is just an idea I have. I'm open to other discussions. Mr. Romero and I discussed about this too. There's, open the possibility, we just need access to an attorney. And, possibly someone would want to submit a bid for working here 3 days or 2 days a week, whatever it is, at call, that they would be able to answer stuff on at call. In other words, if they're not here on the days that they're not working and we need an attorney, they would take our call and they would have to do what they need to do for us. Just getting creative. Mr. Romero said it earlier. I think we need to be flexible already with our work schedules. We need to, a hospital in Albuquerque, for example, they went from 3 shifts to 12 different shifts, and they solved their staffing problem in a week. So you get the nurse that wants to take their kid to school, comes in at 10, leaves at 2. They created that shift for them. They created one from, 2 till 10 in the evening. There's all kinds of different things. So I think it's time for us to be creative. We just need access to an attorney.
Mr. Mayor.
Barbara.
This would be on a special services contract in order to be in compliance with the charter. Okay, so that person would not be appointed by you?
They would be on the special services contract only.
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. So all RFPs are managed by who?
It depends on the department that the RFP has been administrated from.
Okay, this one.
So this one would have to be executive because there's nobody in the attorney office.
Okay. Yeah, as long as that would be included on the RFP, which would be part of our city charter 5013 city 504 city attorney, to make sure that we have letter B and E on there.
Could you read those for us, please?
Yeah, the city attorney shall be an attorney in good standings, qualified in the field of municipal law, licensed to practice law in the state of New Mexico, and shall establish residency in San Miguel County within 90 days of accepting the appointment.
That's where it's not gonna go.
E,
But that's.
the city attorney, whether contractual or employee, serves at the pleasure of the governing body and may be suspended or removed without cause at any time by the mayor, subject to approval by city council or the majority of all membership of the governing body. And that's abiding by the city charter. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could add to that, and I think that's kind of, I know in discussion, I think with the city manager, he one time brought that up about a contractual employee, that you can't have a contractual employee actually live in the city because you can determine, the charter, I think what's happened, if you read that, the way Councilman Montoya read it, there's 2 parts to that. One is actually if they're appointed or whatever, they have to be a resident. And then contractual, well, any attorney that's a full-time attorney, well, they're on a contract. Every single employee is on a contract. So that's kind of where I think that's misinterpreted as to, because if you do a contract, nobody's gonna come from Albuquerque to move over here.
To work 3
I mean,
days.
we've opened it up here in town and we're not gonna get that. So, and this was kind of my situation. I wish we would, and I hate to say this, I knew we were gonna come to this issue because not everybody, with the money, the amount of money that's to be made here in this community at this time, fires and all that, if you look at it, they're all working with fires and all that stuff. So they're not gonna wanna come work for the city for the salary that we're paying. So it's gonna be the contract. But the contract is very difficult, and I'm gonna tell you first place, I have many ordinances that I wanna work on, and it's difficult. I don't wanna burden HR, that they're HR and administration, I have to talk to them, they have to talk to, HR goes to the attorney. By the time I get to speak to them, I could just imagine the time that it would, so I've waited to work on some of this. I just think that part, there's no way that we could request that in a contract.
Right.
I'm just abiding by the charter, and the other question I have is, that's why I asked, who would be in charge of the city attorney? And it's an administrative decision, and,
But that's for an appointed attorney. They won't be appointed. It'll be contract.
So currently then, as it stands, currently everything that we're doing right now, we're going against the charter because they're contracted and they don't live here. So right now, if,
Well, Councilman Romero, it's like you, if the city charter says that you have to live in Las Vegas and live in your ward in order to run, that's what it's gotta be.
but it's,
And the city charter says that the city attorney has to live in San Miguel County within 90 days.
For an appointed attorney. There'll still be an appointment by council. It'll be a contract, a professional contract agreement. That's the difference.
I don't know, maybe that's a legal question, I don't know, I'm not an attorney, so.
can we have, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Right now, we do have it advertised nationwide, and we have had a struggle. We haven't had any bites on it. Currently, we're working off contractual attorneys, and it's kind of a struggle. And so we do need somebody to come in, probably on an RFP, because I think that's what we're gonna get.
And again, Mr. Mayor, you know, we have it advertised at what, 95,000
It's between 95 and 100.
and 100?
We were actually gonna advertise for, change the rate to 150.
Yeah, that's what was recommended by council, to go to 115. And the previous attorneys, we had them at 130. So, I mean, we're not doing everything possible to attract somebody to come work for us.
So the previous city attorney didn't initially come in at 130. He came in
No,
at 100, and then he
Yeah, we gave them up.
an increase of 30,000.
Could you have the league look at this, our charter, and see if it would be okay as opposed to an appointed attorney that I would not appoint, but this would be contractual services if they still have to live in Las Vegas? I think that charter applies to an appointed attorney.
It does, but I can have them look at it.
Okay.
And I don't know about the salary, Mr. Mayor, but for the meantime, if we should try and pick it up and see if somebody would be interested, I don't know. The budget is there, we haven't used it, so we're using the other budget for other attorneys, but this budget is still there. It's not being utilized. We're just gonna carry it over to next year, I guess, right? Yeah.
The current budget reflects a base rate at $131,000.
Yes. See, so I think that we should pick it up and see if there's any bites out there.
For full-time?
For a full-time, yeah. I mean, that's what we were paying for before for full-time, so.
Well, we could advertise for 2 weeks
And
for
the money-
full-time, and then if that doesn't happen, we'll go for a contract,
Well,
for a part-time attorney. Or we could do both at once.
We were already in the process of increasing the salary on that position, as Ms. Arguello stated, but they can go coincide with each other. We get confirmation from the league that it's okay for us to move forward with the RFP, and we put out the RFP based on the scope of work. If we want 3 days a week and they're on-call services and they show up to every council meeting, and we see what comes of it.
I like that in writing, the response.
From council, from the league, of course.
Whomever you want to check with. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, and just to be, for clarification, the budget is 157,000, that's because of the benefits.
Oh, okay. Makes sense. Clear as mud? Do we understand where we want to go with this? Yeah?
So with that, Mr. Mayor, we'll just, I guess, I'll make a motion that we give direction to, that way it's
Okay.
official. We give direction to the city manager to advertise for 2 weeks, and at the same time, also put out an RFP or request for bid as Darlene recommended, and that we do both simultaneously, and at the end, we decide.
Clarification.
So right now, it's currently advertised, and it's currently advertised nationwide. All we have to do is change the rate at this point.
And then at the same time, you're going to get a clarification from municipal.
With that, and add with clarification
I'll
as far
second
as
that
the.
motion.
Okay. There's a first by Mr. Romero, second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Romero? Yes. Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries. And that concludes our business items.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Second?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to go into executive session, please.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, there was a letter placed in front of you from our New Mexico Municipal League attorney. And based on that letter, I would recommend that we wait to go into executive session at our next meeting when we can place it on the agenda,
Okay.
as per our attorney, through the
Very well.
Municipal League.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, you have a,
Have a first? Do we have a?
we have a first, a second? Second by Mr. Romero. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Romero? Yes. Counselor Montoya? Counselor Casey?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Romero. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Did you read this?
Yeah.